Okay, this video we're going to be talking about equations of lines, so our slope-intercept, point slope, and slope. So here's my general slope equation. Remember, this is also rise over run if you see it on a graph. We get these from our 2 points, so x1, y1, and our x2, y2. That's how we get our slope equation. Okay, so I'm going to first label, so x1, y1, x2, y2. And then my equation was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So all we're going to do is fill it in. So my y2 is 5 minus my y1 is negative 1. There's still a minus sign in the center. My x2 minus my x1. Two negatives will make a positive. 5 plus 1 gets me 6. Negative 3 minus 9 gets me negative 12. If I simplified that, that would be negative 1/2. Okay, and remember, slope always stands for m in any of our equations. It's what we're moving to. Okay, so this one we're going to do our rise and run. So if I pick this point and I'm going to this point, I rise 1 and I run 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, remember, anytime you go up or right, it is positive. Anytime you go down or left, it is negative. So if it is a line going downward, it would be a negative slope because it's a decreasing line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say A, B, C, D. Okay, so my positive slope is an increasing line, so that's going to be A. My negative slope should be a decreasing line, so C. The zero slope and undefined slope are the trickier ones. So if I pick 2 points on here, I rise none, but I can run 1. 0 divided by 1 is going to be 0, so that's going to be my zero slope. And my undefined slope is going to be this one. So if I pick 2 points, I would rise 1, but I can't run left or right any. And anytime 0 is on the bottom, it's going to be undefined. Okay? These ones are going to be x equals graphs, and these are going to be my y equals graphs. Okay, so my y equals mx plus b, my m stands for my slope, my b stands for my y-intercept. B is kind of where you begin at, and m is where you're moving to. Okay, so if I give you the slope and the y-intercept, all you have to do is plug it in. Okay, my slope stands for my n, my y-intercept is my b. Okay, my next one, if I'm trying to do slope-intercept, the two things I need are a slope and a y-intercept. So my first job in this is to find my slope. So I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to fill it in. So it's y2 minus my y1 over my x2 minus my x1. 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So my slope when I divide those is negative 3. Okay, then I'm going to pick a point. It doesn't matter which one. Let's say I pick this one here. I need to plug it into my y equals mx plus b equation because I still need that y-intercept. I need to know where it's crossing my y-axis at because it's not crossing at 5. I need to figure out where it is. So I'm going to plug in my x and my y and my slope. So my y is 5. My slope I found was negative 3, and my x is 3 from the point that I picked. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. We would add 9. So my y-intercept, or where it crossed my y-axis, is at 14. So then I can write my equation with my slope and my intercept. So y equals negative 3x plus 14. My slope and my y-intercept. We want to keep these x and y's generic so that when I go to graph it, I can graph it and put a bunch of different points in it if I wanted to. So my x and y are going to remain like that, and I only want to fill in my slope and my y-intercept. Okay, I'm giving you your m and your b, so y equals negative 2x plus 5. Just fill them in. Again, I'm giving you your m because that's your slope, and your y-intercept or your b. Okay, so this one would rise 2, run 3. It'd start on your y-axis at negative 2, rise 2 and run 3, so it would look something like that if we graphed it. Okay, point slope. We need a point and a slope again. Okay, you always have to find slope. If that is missing, that's the first thing to find every time. Okay, so we fill in our points in for these, and then we fill our slope in. The other x and y are just generic. They stay there. Okay, so my first one here, I need to find my slope again. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 minus my y1 over x2 minus my x1. 3 minus 2 gets me 1. 6 minus 2 gets me 3. Okay, then point slope, I can pick either point. And I fill them in for these x1s and y1s. Okay, so let's say I pick this one first. I've got y minus my y value in the point that I picked. My slope, x minus the x value in it. Okay, if I picked my other one here, I would do y minus the y value. My slope, x minus the x value. Okay, if I wanted to get my slope-intercept form to graph it, all I'd have to do is distribute and then add the 2, or distribute and add the 3. Okay, find the equation with the line of my slope of 5, and it goes through this point. So I can do y minus the y value of my point, because all I need is a point and a slope. I got that. So y minus my y value, my slope, x minus my x value. Okay, and then we change our two negatives to be a positive here, because it's always a minus sign, and then when I plug in a negative, it changes to a plus. Okay, equation of the line. So we got to find our slope first. If you don't have slope, that's your first step. So I first label x1, y1, x2, y2, so I don't mess it up. I do my y2 minus my y1. There's always a minus sign, and then I plop my negative 2 in, and then my x2 minus my x1. So two negatives will make a positive here. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So I have my slope. Okay, point slope, I can pick either one. So let's say I pick this one here. I got y minus my y value equals my slope, x minus my x value. Two negatives will make a positive. Let's say I pick the other one. So y minus negative 1, my y value, equals my slope, x minus my x value. Okay, the negative could be on the 1 or the 2, just not on both of them for that one. It means the same thing. And then my two negatives will make a positive again here. Okay, vertical and horizontal lines. X equals 2 is I go to my x-axis. This is my x, this is my y. I've got x equals is going to be an up and down. Okay, and then y equals is my horizontal. So this one I would go to on my y-axis 3, and it would go this way because the slope would be 0. If I rewrote this, it would be 0x plus 3, because 0 times x is 0, plus 3 gets me that y equals 3. If I look at this slope here, so if I go from this point to this point here, I wouldn't rise any, but I could run 1. That gets me that slope of 0, okay? So x equals is up and down, y equals is left to right. Okay, if I were to graph some, so let's say I had the equation y minus 2 equals 1/2 x minus 1. If I wanted to graph this, I need to get it into y equals mx plus b first. So I need to basically solve for y. So let's make this a 4 to make it easier. So first I'm going to distribute this here. So I'm going to do y minus 2 equals 1/2 times x gets me 1/2 x. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. Now to solve for y, we're going to add 2 to both sides. So y equals 1/2 x plus 0. So this one's going to start at 0 on my y-axis. And then my slope, I rise 1, and then I run 2. So it's going to be right there. Or I could go down 1 and left 2. And we're going to get our line here. Okay, so if I do another one like that, let's say it is 1. Let's do a negative. Okay, so my first step is to distribute here. So I'd get negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 times negative 6 is positive 3. Oh man, I did it again. Let's do a 4. Make it different. Okay, so negative 1/2 times negative 4 will be a positive 2. We got to add 3 over here. Don't add it to the x, add it to the thing that it's common as. We get negative 1/2 x plus 5. So that's going to start, if I get some of this out of the way here, it's going to start at 5 on my y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's going to go down 1. And to keep it negative, I got to go right 2. Or I could go up 1 that's positive, but I need it to be negative, so I need to go left 2. Okay, I'm going to show one more. So if I have 2x plus 2y equals 10, okay, I need to solve for y. So first we're going to move that 2x over. If we're trying to graph, I want to in y equals mx plus b, so that x needs to come before the number. So I'm going to write it as minus 2x plus 10. I just plop them in front of that 10. Now I got to divide everything by that 2. So y equals negative x, because that's 2 divided by 2, plus 10 divided by 2 is 5. So it's going to start at 5, and that negative is like a negative 1 over 1. So I'm going to go down 1, right 1, or I could go up 1 to keep it negative, left 1. So if you don't see a number there, it's going to be a 1.